It's these two guys. These two guys. It's these two guys.
Rhetoric, peace, conversation, debate, love, hate, left versus right. These are just a few words that I can come up with that kind of help, build the story that's around Charlie Kirk.
I'm George Henry.
And I'm Larry Richardson.
And we're these two guys. We honestly didn't start off this thing thinking we were going to do conversations like this, but it's too important.
It's very important.
I wanted to say, as part of my opening statement, though, first off, that this is a very heinous thing. I was actually close to tears when I first heard about this. Not really. I mean, I had seen a lot of the videos that he had done. Can't say that I agree with everything he said, but I can also say I didn't disagree with everything he said too. So when this hit, it was very emotional for me because I saw a father, I saw a husband, I saw a person who believed in free speech get gunned down, and it was just wrong.
In front of his daughters too, no doubt. I mean, that was pretty hard in itself to even know that happened that way. And my sentiments toward Charlie Kirk echoes George's. I watched a lot of his videos, his debates, and he always seemed like he was on top of his game. But if you do your research and you truly go back and look at the subjects that he touched on, you'll find that he's not always 100% correct. And he said some things that definitely rub people the wrong way. But then again, he's also a guy that invited conversation and challenge and debates. And really, if someone brought to the table a story and more factual, which we have some videos that will show people did bring actual fact, and he stood fast on his stance as to what he believed certain things like DEI stood for and what that platform meant. You'll see sometimes he was wrong, and that's fine. That's great. That's why you debate. But even if, all this stuff, being wrong and some of the rhetoric and some of the other things, we also have to question, it's a human life. Was it worth losing that?
One thing I can say for sure about Charlie Kirk is he was always prepared. He was pretty much, I think, for everything I've seen, pretty much the smartest guy in the room. There might have been a couple exceptions. I have not seen all his videos, but he's well-read, very intelligent. Goes to show you that, you can be prepared for something, as far as a debate goes, as far as a conversation goes, if you're, do your research.
And you can still be wrong.
And sometimes you can still be wrong. So this happened this week on Wednesday, and when it first happened, obviously there was question as to whether or not he had died immediately. There was also questions about the shooter. And I think I want to call it ugly, one of the ugliest things out of this was the rush to figure out, or the rush to say who they thought was responsible.
Yes, there was definitely a lot of backlash. We don't know the particulars, if it was the campus police, if it was city police, state police, who were the ones who released these people of interest information out, but completely unfair to them. It was, get your ducks in a row, get your facts straight. Yes, I understand rushing to grab suspects because people were definitely running in multiple directions, but conduct your investigation in private. Don't put people's information out there. I guess that's the same thing I felt toward the ICE raids. You put people out there when you know there's going to be others that want to inflict retribution or try to inflict harm on them. And now these people are getting death threats and things like that. It had nothing to do with it.
Charlie Kirk was obviously a polarizing figure. There's no doubt about that. He had, the far left in a tizzy. Of course, he doesn't call himself a Christian nationalist. He calls himself a Christian and a nationalist. But a lot of people put those two together when they're talking about him. So he was on the right, although he spouted in several of the videos I saw as a libertarian that held a lot of libertarian views, and then a few views that he held that were non-libertarian.
Right.
And those non-libertarian was the open borders, that kind of policy there, the DEI and stuff like that he felt was not part of a libertarian value. So on that side, he was not a libertarian when it came to that.
And immigration, open borders, same thing.
Yeah. When this happened, a lot of people went on, a lot of popular figures went on. Luckily, we saw a lot of the politicians on both sides just speak to how heinous the crime was versus that they were happy or pleased or saw it coming. They didn't do, most of them that I saw didn't do any of that.
Yeah, I didn't see a lot of at least from, like you said, the more popular, the more noticeable.
Bernie Sanders, AOC, Elizabeth Warren, Biden. Yeah. And then, of course, on the other side, even President Trump didn't come out and say, well, I think this was, such and so.
Right.
He just said, we pray for the family. We pray for his kids. This is a very sad day. And we kind of talked a little bit about before we started doing this about how, people were now trying to compare the Minnesota congresswoman that got killed and her husband.
And a dog.
And they were trying to say how, they didn't get the same kind of notoriety or they didn't get the same kind of publicity on this that Charlie Kirk got. And my thought was not that there was less about them, but simply because of who Charlie Kirk was and what his audience was and what his following was and how much of a world following that he had was sort of on a larger scale. Not that his death was more important,
no,
or less important, or there's less important. It's sad either way on both sides of it. But you've got the idea that certainly more people are going to come to this because he had more friends in the public, more friends in politics, more friends, across the board. I mean, even athletes in that were coming out.
Oh, yeah.
And supporting, him in this just very tragic time.
I mean, Charlie Kirk's name was about as well known as Betty Crocker.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know there was a Horton lawmaker in Minnesota. I did not know that person existed until that assassination had happened. And it's not to downplay. I don't think anybody wants to downplay their deaths. It was a heinous situation as well. Any time someone's taken out or murdered because they take a stance is just wrong, naturally wrong. It doesn't matter if you're left or right, middle, it doesn't matter. It's wrong. But like George said, I think the popularity of the Minnesota lawmakers and Charlie Kirk is so different that, if I die today, if someone comes and shoot me, the city of Florence might know about it. Some people in Sacramento and some people in San Francisco might know about it, but that's it.
Yeah.
If I was Michael Jordan and I got assassinated, everybody's going to know about it. So, I mean, that's kind of basically what it was. That's the way I feel it was.
We're certainly not here to impugn Charlie Kirk or to necessarily set him on a pedestal either.
No.
But one of the things that I saw that I thought was interesting is when he was talking about DEI and talking about whether your airplane pilot was qualified or not. So give a listen here.
The context between what you brought up was that you believe that
because they were being hired because they were black.
Okay, so can we both agree that every single pilot, whether black, white, whoever, has to go through FAA certification?
No, actually,
We can't?
new lawsuit shows that black pilots and female pilots have the standards being relaxed.
No,
for them.
sir. Can we agree at the time of February 29th or 2023 when you said it at the time? No?
No, actually, I said it. That's why you don't know the context. Is that new lawsuits were showing that they were relaxing the standards for air traffic control and pilots in order to meet the standards.
The context of that was diversity, equity, and inclusion. What does that have to do with hiring?
Everything. DEI definitionally is that we will hire more of a race versus a different race. So, for example, United Airlines said that they want 50% of their new pilots to either be women or black.
Okay.
Currently, just so you understand, it's like 8%. So they want to go from 8% to 50%.
Okay.
And every time DEI is implemented, every single time, the lowering of standards occurs.
So there you saw where, he was sort of a metaphor, I guess, or sort of kind of putting on a plane, that if he saw a black pilot, he might wonder if they were as qualified. And he was stating in that video that the regulations for a black or female pilot were lessened, relaxed for that. Now, I did some research on that and checked into that, and that's just not true. There's a misconception out there that diversity programs mean black or female pilots don't face the same standard as white pilots. This is regarding the FAA. It's simply not true according to the FAA. In the United States, every pilot, regardless of race or gender, must pass the exact same Federal Aviation Administration requirements. That means the same flight hours, the same written and oral exams, the same medical screenings, and the same check rides. Now, airlines can do outreach to encourage more women or underrepresented folks, but the FAA qualifications are rigorous and they're not movable. And this is according to FAA guidelines. So that's one of the cases there where I know he was trying to make a point, but that's where I kind of differ between the idea of affirmative action,
Right.
which came in the 70s, where if you were a woman or a person of color or a minority, that you might be given an opportunity.
Based on race and sex.
Well,
Yeah.
for example, I went to a Christian college that was founded in the 1930s, right? It wasn't until 1976 that they started allowing black students to even be at the school. That was after, the civil rights movement. That was after, all that happened. So they still felt like they were acquiescing to the pressure.
Right.
It's not something they wanted to do, but they knew that they had certain amounts of funding that was coming or would be coming from the government, that if they didn't do it, they were going to lose their tax exempt status and all that stuff. Yeah. So it was under pressure that they did that. And I think that's what affirmative action did.
Right. And that's not DEI.
No. It put pressure on businesses to do that. Now, you probably know more than I do. I think we've come a long way since then.
Oh, yeah.
Still got a way to go.
Yeah.
But DEI, and I want to say, and I may be wrong on this, so please don't get on my case for this. But I think DEI has a lot more to do with the LGBTQ plus community than it does about blacks, Hispanics, Asians, and women. And the reason I say that is because you're more likely than you were 30 years ago to see a black CEO of a company.
Yes.
Or a woman CEO of a company. So I think we made a lot of strides in that. But there's the backlash of people not wanting, people that are questioning their gender to run their company.
Right.
So I think that DEI is more in place like that. But again, I don't think DEI is the same as affirmative action in that it allows for people of color and women to be seen in a situation, not necessarily with less qualifications,
right,
just to have the opportunity to be seen for that position.
Yes.
Whereas it wasn't the case many, many years ago.
That was my take on DEI as well. I again, honestly, myself, I have not done any, ground pounding research on DEI. I understood it almost kind of like the way Charlie Kirk had stated it, where you have a quota. You have to have X amount of Asian. You have to have X amount of black. You have to have X amount of female. And that was DEI. But I always saw it from like a company standpoint. You know, if you're a Fortune 500 company, you're publicly traded or whatever, then at that point now you have to implement a DEI process. And you might have to hire someone that, yes, because you don't have any females in this particular in this department, or you don't have any females working for this company, you have to have at least two. You know, I don't know exactly how that was all supposed to work, but that was my understanding of it. I would have never, even watching Charlie Kirk say that, I would have never thought that they would say, okay, you're a black person, we need a pilot.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're not as good as the next guy. You know,
got 3 hours on Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Yeah,
Come on
we'll
in.
put you in there.
We'll get you in. I did not see that being the case. It makes perfect sense, like you said, that they have to go through the same training. They have to have the same qualifications. So even listening to that debate, it just didn't sound right.
Well, and nowhere in there in the video did he say that there were federal mandates that said you had to have a certain percentage. He said, well, if the airline wanted to all of a sudden have 50% blacks and women pilots, he said then the pool that they would have to go to would be a lower pool, or potentially a lower pool. And in defense of Charlie Kirk, I've heard him many times say that he doesn't care what the person's color or gender is. He just wants the best person there. And who doesn't?
Right.
I want the best pilot.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and we've heard that argument where, you know, if you're laying on an operating table, are you going to be concerned more if it's a DEI hire or the best qualified doctor? Well, it's going to be a doctor. It's going to be a qualified doctor. If you go to a hospital that has DEI or doesn't have DEI, you're still going to get a doctor. You're going to get a surgeon. Do you know that surgeon's better than the one who just got off duty? You're not going to know. You're not going to know, right? So I think that whole argument, that whole debate about qualifications, you know, are hiring people based on skin tone and sex versus qualifications, may work or may possibly be applied in certain areas, like, again, a small company, something like that, but not on an airplane, not in a hospital. And I think those are just they seem like kind of foolish arguments, honestly. But again, I understand that his goal was probably just to spark up a conversation. Maybe somebody needed to bring that to him and change his mind. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people who debated with him like you said, they weren't prepared. They weren't prepared to give that logical response to him that will make him say, oh, well, wait a minute. Now I got to go back and think. Now I have to go back and do my research, because what you said makes perfect sense. And as long as he was the smartest guy in the room, he didn't have a need to back down.
And when he would ask a question and the other person just sat there dumbfounded because they didn't have the answer, I mean, it kind of told you, and that's like one of his tenets was, you know, college is
As a waste, a scam.
Is a waste.
It's
a scam.
Yeah.
That's what he says. College is a scam. And, you know, coming from someone who didn't graduate college, I'm not saying it's a scam, but you can certainly do okay in life without going to college.
Yes.
You know, you do your own research, you do your own reading, you do all that, and you can do that. One of the other things to note about DEI, and again, it's not necessarily about DEI, but if you want to talk about the best qualified for certain things, if you live in a rural community, you may or may not get the best qualified doctor. No. Because they don't want to come to rural communities. Now there is a program where they can get their education paid for if they go and spend a certain amount of time in rural communities. But you can, you know, DEI or no DEI, you're not necessarily going to get the best if you go into a hospital anyway.
That is true.
It's not 100%.
No. You're not guaranteed the best doctor just because you're in a hospital and you see he's white. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. My sister's a white doctor. I mean, she's a veterinarian, but she's a white doctor, and she got straight C's in college. So that doesn't make her a bad doctor.
No.
She's just a bad student.
And it doesn't make her a DEI hire just because she's a female.
No, it doesn't. So again, I want to take another turn here. And Larry brought something up. He posted something on Facebook that I think is very important to understand. And again, I agree with a lot of what Charlie Kirk says here in this next video. And then there's some things I don't agree with in other videos. But Larry brought this fact up about how he thought it was very important to have conversations. The conversation was very important. Watch this.
When people stop talking, really bad stuff starts. When marriages stop talking, divorce happens. When church starts happening, they fall apart. When civilizations stop talking, civil war ensues. When you stop having a human connection with someone you disagree with, it becomes a lot easier to want to commit violence against that group. Whether it be the great genocide, the horrible genocides of the last 100 years, people stop talking with each other because they lose their humanity. I wish we could be here without having my hat thrown off and stuff, but what we as a culture have to get back to is being able to have reasonable disagreement where violence is not an option.
Now, what's interesting in that, what you didn't see at the beginning of that video is there was a woman there asking him about his hat. He had an ice hat on, and she asked him what that stood for. And as soon as he told her, she ripped it off his head, and she turned around and started walking away. And at first, his security started to manhandle her. And he said, no, don't touch her.
Yeah, don't want to
Let
press
her go.
charges.
No, I don't want to press charges. And he yelled out, hey, let's have a conversation.
Yep.
You know, I really commend him for that. And I've seen that in many of the other things too. And I've seen him talk to, I saw him talk to a black woman that had a child, and he talked glowingly about her and her child. So I don't see that bigotry there. You know, I mean, I can't say that I see him as a bigot. Now, he may have said some things that were questionable at times, but I don't see him, I see him as somebody that has a belief system that wants fairness. I don't think he's all about the white person. You know, I think he's all about fairness. I really do. I think that's something that doesn't come out a lot.
I think he was very even kiltered too. And it comes to certain, I mean, if you watch his debates, the people who are respectable to him got the same level of respect back.
Right.
He didn't try to belittle people. He didn't try to make people feel dumb because, you know, of their idea. I think, again, with this conversation he had with that last video you just watched, where he's talking about, you know, you got to have a conversation. He comes into these debates, like you said, prepared. He knows what he's talking about. He's 100% in the know. And the people that are coming up to the microphone of their own volition, they decide to come up to this microphone. They're not asked to do it. They're not forced to do it. They come up, they're not prepared. And then sometimes there's anger and there's, you know, or there's belittling or name calling, which you'll see in one of the videos we have.
Or there's a preconceived notion about who Charlie Kirk is,
right,
based on what they might have seen a couple of videos,
right,
instead of, you know, watching a lot of his videos and that.
And you know, you'll see that he always welcomed that conversation. He that's what debating is. You say your side, the other person says their side, and either you come to an agreement or you change the other person's minds or open their eyes. You don't have to change their mind, just open their eyes to something, to look at something differently, to see it from a different point of view. And I think, as he's trying to say in that video, it's important that we continue to do that. I'm not going to call somebody a name because they don't like what I like. You know, I don't eat mayonnaise. Doesn't mean I need to be immersed. You
don't eat mayonnaise?
I don't eat mayonnaise.
Get out of here.
But, you know, maybe
how about Miracle Whip?
I was to say the Miracle Whip is even worse. But I mean, do I need to die for it? You know?
Yeah.
So,
one thing I found interesting is in watching all these videos, and trust me, Larry, I've done a deep dive. I pulled out a few videos to show everybody here, but I have probably watched 200 or 300 videos in the last several days on this, just trying to get a sense of who Charlie Kirk was. And I noticed, and this is, I hate to say this, but for the most part, he had his match met only by the Cambridge students.
Yes. Oh my God.
I mean, you look at the American students in college that he was talking to. I mean, I saw videos where, you know, they were just saying, no, I want to talk, I want to talk, I want to talk. And yet they wouldn't say anything, you know, when it came their time to talk.
Right.
But yet you get someone from Cambridge and specifically talking about the war in Gaza right now and the situation there. This one young man, I would still say it was an even. But
yeah, it doesn't seem like
it was an even. It was a draw, but this is what he had to say.
Unconditionally attacked on October 7th. They're responding in kind. And I would just ask you a very simple moral question. How should Israel have responded?
Not with the blanket carpet bombing of the city, not with bombing hospitals. Of course, some kind of military operation might have been necessary, but not murder on this scale. There is no justification for what is happening with the enormous death toll that is being produced. I really cannot see how you come here and you have the gall to lecture us on Christian morality and then sit here and justify the murder of thousands of civilians. And is it working, Mr. Kirk? Is Hamas dismantled?
I've never said that.
You just did.
Well, no,
this is your whole
in
thing.
war, these are called casualties of a war.
We're going to need to stop bringing this
again.
close.
I'm not going to justify every military maneuver of a 100,000 person army. Instead, what I will do is I'll be clear that there is a good guy and there is a bad guy. I honestly...
Isn't that the morality of a child?
Well, hold on. It's interesting you say that, because a child who knows that Israel is the good guy, Hamas is bad, has a lot more wisdom than a student like yourself at Cambridge University.
I will be glad that I will not have been somebody who has defended the genocide of the Palestinian people, and I think you will have to reckon one day that you have reckoned with.
Interesting. I want to close on this. So can you tell me what African country is currently ongoing a civil war?
Believe it or not, I know about Sudan because I'm not an idiot.
How about what Southeast Asian country has an ethnic cleansing going on right now?
Myanmar.
Good. And you have strong opinions on both sides?
Unlike you, I take an effort to be informed about foreign policy and to come to conclusions. You are a culture warrior. I believe when everything is done, Mr. Kirk, people will see you and the people you've supported as corrupt, as selling the country out to the lowest bidder, and of doing irreparable damage to a country I'm sure we all deep down love.
The difference,
I think you will have to reckon with that.
Difference,
Mr. Kirk.
Is when...
Now, depending on the algorithm of your YouTube searches, you're going to see this video somewhere. It'll say Charlie Kirk destroys Cambridge student, or you'll see Cambridge student destroys Charlie Kirk. It just really depends on which algorithm is directing that to you. If you want to do your own research and check that video out yourself.
You know, speaking of, I was watching a video where Charlie Kirk was talking with somebody about algorithms. And about how, you know, the same information is there for everybody, but you might, like you said, you might get a little bit different title in the video because it's wanting to appeal with you're going to click on it if it matches your
search history and what you look for.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very smart system. It knows if you're leaning right and you're clicking on videos, it's going to be right specific. If you're leaning left, you're going to click on videos, you're going to get left specific. Sometimes when I do my research and I'm looking, because I try to look on both sides, I look at ground news, I look at all these other things. If I do enough research on the right or the left, that algorithm will start clicking over and I start seeing more videos based on whatever search I'm doing. So there is two sides to every coin, and there are stories that we've found that kind of gets manipulated or cut short and things like that. But we'll touch on that in a little bit.
Now, one of the other things to talk about too is some of the, I mean, social media is just pitiful. I mean, there's a lot of sad, sick people out there that jumped all over this as an opportunity to celebrate the situation.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, there was even a guy there in the crowd that was jumping up and down when it happened.
Yes. And he did a 180 real quick.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's too late.
It's too late. Yeah.
Too late is out there.
Yeah.
And then there were people, I did not see you mention the Young Turks. I did not see that. TMZ, not the Young Turks, TMZ.
Yeah.
So what happened with that?
So TMZ, they were actually live at the moment that Trump posted that Charlie Kirk had passed. And at the moment this happened, and you can see the apology video, because I saw the apology video first. What was an apology video? It was TMZ basically standing up saying, you might have heard some cheering going on, but it wasn't for Charlie Kirk. It was because, in the other room we're watching a high-speed chase, and the chase had ended or something like that, and everybody started cheering. And they were quick to do this because they started immediately getting attacked that, hey, how are you guys cheering on Charlie Kirk's death? What they didn't take in consideration was that people are not stupid. They could see the timestamps. They can see the timestamps on the car chase and realize the car chase was still actively going. It was O.J. Simpson speed car chase. Like it was.
Yeah, not a really fast one.
It wasn't like they're chasing the C8 Corvette down, an open highway or something. This was a Hyundai or something that, probably running on 3 cylinders out of 6. And they were just slowly going down the street. And at the moment that, and I can't remember the guy's name who runs the TMZ, but he says he's literally standing there talking to someone. He turns around and he goes, we just got word that Charlie Kirk is passed. And as he's saying that, you can hear the cheering in the background. But they also have their studio clocks. There's a clock on the phone next to them. And a couple of cyber sleuths just came and pulled the time-lapse video and said, okay, well, this is the time this happened. This is the time this happens. It's a 35-minute window from the time that chase had happened to when they said, the cheering and stuff was done. And
so who will they be able to outlive that? That's the question.
They will be. TMZ is another staple. They'll get some, I think they'll just get some negative press. They'll make an apology video. They'll probably say that they're downsizing some people, because there's a guy on the internet, and his whole job since Charlie Kirk's death is finding people who have been putting out those videos dancing and celebrating his death, and he takes it and he sends it to their employers. And he every couple of hours he'll come back with a list of people who have been terminated from their job for basically celebrating Charlie
I've seen
Kirk's
some
death.
of that. I've seen some of those people that they did have a job and now they don't.
Now they don't. Yeah. TMZ. I don't know. I mean, what do you think? I mean, I don't.
Well, I don't really watch them a lot because they're kind of sensationalistic, on how they do that. So I don't really spend a lot of time watching them. Although they do have some interesting stuff from time to time.
They do get the greatest smut.
One thing I did see though is when this was happening, Joe Rogan posted a video of they were doing an interview. I think it might have been Charlie Sheen that he was interviewing.
Yeah.
And at that time is when they heard and they broke into that and they were saying, "Oh, we just heard that Charlie Kirk got shot." Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Is this real? Did this really happen?" And it was interesting, that at that particular time that, they were aware of it as well. It's just, gosh, it's one of those things. It's like, to me, every human life is precious. I've got a friend of mine out of California that has been fighting the Trump thing, fighting, the far right conservative moment for years now. And she did not jump up and down at Charlie Kirk's death, but she was one of the ones that brought into mind, like, how come this wasn't a big deal when the two students got killed, or when the Minnesota, or the school shootings, or all this stuff. It's like, when are we going to have a dialogue about gun safety? When are we going to have a dialogue about mental health? I seriously think that at the heart of everything, it's mental health, to be honest with you. It's not a gun issue as big as it is a mental health issue.
I kind of agree. I mean, a gun is an inanimate object. It's a dangerous one.
Yes,
but it's an inanimate object. If you put it on a table, it will not get up, grow legs, and
it will not kill anybody sitting on a table.
Anybody. No. It's the person that pulls the trigger. A car, though it has moving parts, it's an inanimate object until someone starts it and drives it. If someone is determined enough to kill, they don't need a gun. They can use a car. A rice cooker, the Boston bombing. People will find a way. And that's not to say that, we should take away guns, so that way the gun portion of it ends. I think I think on both sides, the NRA and people are pro Second Amendment. I am very pro Second Amendment. I own guns, and I don't feel like I need to have, as a law-abiding citizen, I don't feel like I need to have my rights taken away to defend myself because there's a bunch of nut jobs out there. But I feel that I'm okay with background checks. I'm okay with more strenuous background checks. If I'm in a house and I have young kids, wife, dog, whatever, I'm okay with them saying, hey, you know what? If you want to own a gun and your kids are school age, we want to make sure that you're having.
Show me you know how to use it. Show me you know how to secure it.
A gun safe.
Right.
I'm fine with that. And they do. When you buy a gun, there is a thing that says, oh, yeah, I own a safe. What is anybody can check that. I'm fine with having an agency that says, if you're going to own this weapon, it's not a weapon of mass destruction, but it does kill. It can kill someone. And it's not something that people should take lightly. But there's people who don't want their rights infringed. Oh, I want to buy a gun, but I don't want to have to subject myself to this level of background check. I don't want to have to show somebody a picture of my gun safe, or I don't want to have maybe some random person knock on the door and said, hey, you own 15 weapons. We just need to make sure they're secure. You have young kids in your house, you have a student in here, and we want to make sure that's safe.
So you're saying you are okay with that?
I would be, as opposed to, if that was the option, as opposed to taking everything away, okay. I would, if that was the only two options, I'd submit to that.
Yeah. Okay.
If someone could say magically, if you turn in your guns, every gun in the United States will just disappear, and there won't be any violence. That means the guns from the criminals as well as the guns from the law-abiding citizens. I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, but what about the guns from the law enforcement and from the military and all that? Because
they eventually will find. Yeah,
that's what the Second Amendment is supposed to be for. Right. To have a well-armed militia to protect us from our own government. That's kind of what that was there for. Unfortunately, what the founding fathers didn't know is that the armed forces and federal thing. We would never stop them if there was a situation like that. If we ever had to. It doesn't matter how many guns you had, you wouldn't be able to do what they can do with theirs. No. At this point.
And fully automatic weapons are heavily regulated. I mean, the hoops you have to go through to get a fully automatic weapon. And if you modify, because some weapons can be modified,
you can.
That's automatic 10 years in jail. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So there are laws to keep. I won't say every gun is not a dangerous weapon, but a fully automatic is far different than a semi-automatic. Mm-hmm. And it's, I'm going to go on a little tangent here. It's kind of funny to listen to the politicians that tell us that a 30 caliber clip or a gun brace makes turn a semi-automatic weapon into a fully automatic weapon. Those people should not be making laws, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, since we are talking about guns right now, I think everybody that has listened to Charlie Kirk for any amount of time has heard him talk about this right here. Take a listen.
You're not going to get gun deaths to zero. It will not happen. Right. You can significantly reduce them through having more fathers in the home, by having more armed guards in front of schools. We should have an honest and clear reductionist view of gun violence, but we should not have a utopian one. You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year, so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational.
Obviously, we can't speak for Charlie Kirk. I don't think he had himself in mind when he was talking about that. No. I get what he's saying, just like he said about the cars. If we took every car off the road, there'd be 50,000 less car deaths a year because people die in cars. But we have traffic laws and all that for that. It's unfortunate that, it was kind of prophetic that he said that, but certainly, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that statement. I mean, the idea, I don't think we have to have any gun deaths to justify our right to own guns.
Right.
That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I don't understand that one either. I looked at that and I've watched it a few times and I've seen people throw it back in his face and like, oh, look how ironic it is. It's just, it's karma, it's blah, blah, blah. But aside from that, I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't know exactly what his, watching Charlie Kirk, I think he valued life just like you and I. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know I value life. I know you value life. I don't think that he's like, you got to crack a couple eggs to make an omelet type of scenario. I think he's just saying that the more this happens, I think it should provoke more conversation, was what I kind of got out of it, about our Second Amendment rights and to keep those rights. There will have to be some sacrifices, maybe not in deaths so much but just having that conversation to say, okay, are you willing to give up this in order to keep that?
Well, one of the conversations that he had with a gentleman was talking about, the guy was saying, well, back then they could only fire 3 rounds in 30 seconds, with a musket, so that doesn't mean, and, it's not the same as firing a 30-round clip today. And then Charlie kind of says, well, what about the First Amendment? And the guy goes, what do you mean? He says, well, does your First Amendment right only go to what you can write down with a quill and parchment?
Yeah.
What about Twitter? What about Facebook? What about social media? So does it not extend beyond that? So, I understand that argument as well.
Yeah.
One of the saddest things that I saw, and it's hard to even talk about it now, but someone was talking to Charlie Kirk and asking him questions about that, about why he does what he does and what he loves most about what he does. And the thing that he said just cut me right in the heart. He said, I enjoy doing this. I enjoy having conversations with people. I enjoy having this interaction. He said, but there's no greater joy than when I walk in the door of my home and my daughter comes and grabs me by the leg. And I was like, shit, that is something that his daughter is never going to do again. And someone took that away from him.
Yeah, right in front of her.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know where they were in the audience. I know they were supposedly nearby.
Well, I think one report says that one of the daughters had witnessed it. I don't know either, because as we've seen with the first few arrests that they...
You're never really sure exactly.
You're never really sure. Yeah. You're never really sure. But yeah, I've seen some very, even before he passed, pictures of videos of him and his family interacting with each other and stuff. And
one was taking his daughter to I think it was an American doll store.
Factory. Yeah. We make your doll. Yeah.
Yeah. And then going in there and that. And I mean, it's just so sweet. And you think that, this guy loved his kids.
Yeah.
Regardless of what else you thought about him, if you didn't know he loved his kids, you weren't paying attention.
No. And yeah, it got me in the feels too. And as a father, I would hate to be looking down from heaven or even looking up from hell at my kids and just think that,
Are you not sure where you're going?
I'm honestly not really sure. But it'd be hard to look at them and even if I died of natural causes, to just wonder what that leaves them, how they feel. And these kids are young, and they're gonna, regardless how much you hated him, regardless how much you love him, Charlie Kirk will have a legacy.
Right.
He's going in the history books. I mean, people say, oh, well, he doesn't deserve it or whatever. That's for you to say. That's for other people to say. That's not for me to say. But I believe that's what's going to happen because, he is going to be a martyr. And it is what it is, for the left or for the right, however you look at it. I think this is not something that's just going to go away. And his kids are going to grow up
Well, and they're going to grow up with the trauma too,
Yeah.
of having experienced that. Now, another thing which we haven't touched on, and that's the fact that post Wednesday, you have to be very, very careful about what you watch now, because AI is already coming out with videos of people saying things that they didn't necessarily say.
Yeah.
So you know, I mean, if someone has a beef against some political figure, they could do an AI video that has them saying something they didn't say. And so you have to be very observant. Do your research before you start. The one thing I hate more than anything, and I don't think I've ever done it. If I have, my apologies, but I don't think I've ever done it. And that's posted something on social media from Facebook or something like that and said, "Oh my goodness, look at this."
Yeah.
You know, because you don't
know. And I think, and again, this is talking from the side of my neck. I haven't researched it. I've heard it, but apparently there have already been reports of China and like Russia putting out propagandist videos and storylines and stuff like that to kind of fuel the fire, to break us apart more. So yeah, as a public service announcement, be careful of that stuff, because even if I'm reporting this incorrectly, the potential is definitely there. I mean, the best way to destroy a country is from within, and it happens. So, you know, choose your media sources wisely. I think sharing stories that you haven't researched is probably not wise. Share your feelings, share your stories, but, you know, don't share propaganda. Don't share things that are not true, because there's people out there that just believe it. And, you know.
And again, that goes back to, you know, people in the news getting right on the thing going, well, you know, there were some writings on the shell
Bullet
casing that said
casings.
trans, you know, and of course it had nothing to do with that. It was the Turin, you know, ammunition manufacturer that was on there, the TRN. So it's like, you know, people jump to conclusions, and I hate that, you know. Nobody wants to give it enough time to find out what's really going on before they start jumping to conclusions.
And that's bad. And right now the temperature between the left and the right it's at a boiling point. We don't need to add more fuel to that. I think that people really need to take a step back and, you know, breathe.
And it's those of us in the middle who have to hear it from both sides.
Yes.
You know, I mean, it's like, I was like, oh my God, please, I don't want to hear that from you anymore. I don't want to hear that from you anymore. Let's just turn the temperature down.
Yeah.
You know, let's calm it down. I mean, the horrible deed is already done. We can't undo that.
No.
You know, so let's figure out how to move forward and fix it so it doesn't ever happen again.
Yeah. And I mean, if anything you could take from Charlie Kirk, and again, hate him, love him, the one thing that I take from him, and like I said, you and I agreed that a lot of things he said, you know, a lot of things was yay, but the most important thing was a dialogue needs to happen. We can't lose our ability to have a conversation. We just can't lose that. We can't lose the ability to be different and hating that other person because they're different, because they see things differently. That's not what anybody wants. And it's kind of hypocritical to see people say, oh, well, you know, and this goes to both sides. Again, it's not a left or right thing, but people saying, oh yeah, well, we're all about peace. We're all about love. As long as you see things the way we see it. Then if not, you know, so, just, if you take anything from Charlie Kirk, just have that conversation, have debates, you know, it's healthy. It's healthy to listen to other people's ideas. It doesn't mean that you have to change. It doesn't mean you have to switch. It doesn't mean you have to agree. It doesn't mean anything other than the fact that hear each other out. That's the start of everything peaceful. You can't have peace without some sort of conversation. You can't have unity without some sort of conversation.
And what I would hate to see, and, you know, unfortunately it was a great unifier. You know, 9/11 was, you know, we all had a common enemy, so we all banded together at that point in time. I'd like to see us all band together without having to have a common enemy.
Yes.
You know?
we don't need 5,000 people to die to get together this time. We got one person who did it, and I was going to make him sound like a messiah if I say it that way.
Yeah,
but
careful.
But yeah, I got to be careful. But the temperature is there enough to where people can see what's on the thermostat. You know, just
let's learn from this. That's what we're saying. Let's learn from this.
From it. Yep.
It doesn't need to happen again. It's senseless violence. You know, and again, like Larry, I'm a Second Amendment guy. I have my guns. You know, I believe in them. My wife has hers. It's not about that. It's about the fact that we need to respect one another to the point where we can have different opinions. I mean, I've got people on both sides that I love to death, that I would give my life for, you know, because they're my friends, you know, and I don't care what their political beliefs are, because we have other commonalities, you know, that are more important to me than that.
Yeah. I mean, I go through, and some of you guys know me on Facebook, and you see my Facebook. Well, I won't say anybody's name, but he and I go back and forth into debates. And through the debates, we'll sit there and we hammer each other. We hammer each other on facts. We hammer each other on lies. We hammer each other on everything. And then it's like, hey, how's your family? Everything's great. Hey, when you're in town, let me know. You know, that is healthy conversation. It doesn't matter how heated our debates get. If that man showed up and he's like, hey, I'm in town or whatever, come on over. There's a bed here. You know, we have an extra room. Come have dinner. And to me, that's important. And if I can do it, I don't know why everybody else can't. Why is it that no one else can do it? Why does nobody want to do it? You know?
Yeah. Your opinions are so ingrained in you that you can't let anybody else have theirs, and that's not healthy, in my opinion. Now, this is not the place to put this video, but we have one more video, and we'll comment a little bit on it. But Charlie Kirk had priorities, and he had a little bit of an agenda, and here he is talking about that agenda.
My mission right now is defend the Trump administration on the great stuff they're doing, get J.D. Vance elected as the next president of the United States in 2028. And if they ever run out of people, I don't even know if I would consider it. You know why? People say, are you going to run for Senate or Congress? I'd say, listen, honestly, I think the impact we're making is bigger than sometimes some of the U.S. senators. I don't know if you guys agree or not.
I do.
Well, that's nothing new. We knew what side of the spectrum he was on. You know, a big supporter of Trump. He wants to see J.D. Vance become the next president. I think had he survived, he probably would have been a big part of making that happen coming down the road. But unfortunately, you know. Oh, and one more thing. Did you watch the video that his wife put up there?
I did. I watched as much as I could. I am not a big softy. I am one of those guys that I can cry at a Hallmark commercial, or I can laugh by watching not a real video, but a movie with 20 people getting mowed down at a time, a John Wick movie. I'm laughing. So watching that, it was hard. It was hard for me to watch it.
Well, and this is a grieving woman, and I don't know what she'll say in the next coming months and stuff, but you're probably likely to hear it change a little bit. I mean, most people do when they go through the grieving process and they get that. She may become more stern in her words. She may become less. That's one of those things. You just, you know, give her some peace. Give her some space to be grieving. You know, don't be critical.
Yeah, I always try to be, and I know Charlie Kirk hated that word, empathy. I guess he was sympathetic. It was a word he chose over empathy, but
yeah, you know, he's got that comment out there, and what immediately follows that comment, he says, "I like compassion. I like sympathy,
right.
Because empathy is where you know you can understand what they're doing, you know, but sympathy is where you."
Compassion.
Yeah, compassion for that person because of what they're going through.
Right.
Empathy is like, oh yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah, empathy is more relatable, but compassion is more emotional. You know, more emotional connection, I think, and yeah, and even that, I saw a video where that got twisted, where they actually just showed the first part of that.
Yeah, they do. That's mostly what they do.
Yeah.
They show where he talks about how empathy is a made up word.
Yeah.
And then immediately afterwards it goes, I like compassion. I like sympathy. So, people will twist things the way they want them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We don't do that here. That's not what we're about.
No.
These two guys is about open discussions. I think for good or bad, Larry and I agree on a lot. So, I mean, sometimes it takes bringing somebody else in here to get a different point of view. And again, if you have a stake to be made in something, we'd be more than happy to bring you on board.
We'll be very happy to circle around this exact same subject, bring you on, and you can state your case. We can have an open debate, a friendly debate. Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said. There's a lot to take in, and there's a lot of emotions involved in this for the left and the right. But we appreciate you guys watching us and hearing us out.
And again, we know we're not solving the world's problems here.
No.
We're just bringing to light that there's some compassion out there, that even if you don't agree with somebody, you can still be loving and caring and kind and compassionate towards that person.
It doesn't take a lot.
No. It's a lot easier to love than to hate. And I guess I'll mention this now. When we first talked about doing this, my stomach was in pits.
Yeah, both of us.
Because Larry and I are pretty easygoing guys. We like fun stuff. We like entertaining stuff. We like movies. We like drones. We like, shooting our guns, motorcycles. Yeah. We like all that fun stuff. Yeah. And then the last couple of weeks, things keep happening. And my stomach was in a pit because I know that I'm going to have to talk about something that's uncomfortable for me to talk about.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
We debated. We debated for a while if we were going to even talk about this because, the temperature is high. But I think it's important that it gets out there and that people can see that conversations can be had. And if we touch just one person with this podcast and they decide that they want to try to take more of an approach of peace and have conversations with somebody who differs from them, I'm satisfied.
Or if you just feel the need to become more educated about a subject so that when you have a conversation with somebody, you know a little bit about what we're talking about or what they're talking about. So it's all good.
It's all good. And it's not to say that we're 100% right. Nope. I don't think that I'm 100% right.
And we're not all smart.
No,
I'm not.
No.
I don't know. I can't speak for Larry, but
I sometimes claim to be the smartest guy in the room only because I know I'm not the smartest guy in the room.
I am the smartest guy in the room when I'm the only guy in the room.
Yeah,
that's me. Yeah. But anyway, hey, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for staying till the end. We sure do appreciate you. We love you.
And remember, like, subscribe, comment, check out our merch site. These two guys, THESE, the number 2 guys, GUYS, almost lost it there, .com. Check us out. We have our emails posted there. We have fresh merchandise. All of our videos are posted there.
And again, we're on YouTube at These Two Guys. We are on Spotify at These Two Guys. We're on Apple Music and Apple Podcasts, and we're on Amazon. So you can get us at any of those. Whatever your favorite one is, we'll be there for you. Have a great day.
Peace out.
It's these two guys. These two guys. It's these two guys.